Hello and welcome to Legends of the Wind. I'm Jurri Schenck. Thank you for joining us tonight. Imagine that there is a library in the magical kingdom that resides in the land of mystery and magic. And it has books written about you. And these books can be containing stories about you of any genre. They can be fantasy, love story, thriller, romance, adventure, anything. Now, if you knew that there was a story written about you, wouldn't you want to know what story you're in? Wouldn't you want to find out how to live your life from your place of adventure? Well, here at Legends of the Wind, we have the ability to bring you those stories and help you discover who you are and what your destiny is. So thank you for joining us tonight. So I have a question for about tonight's show. What will you do when faced with grief and darkness? Now, we've been doing a promotion recently about people getting free stories. Some of them have signed up on our website, and some of them have been gifts for like their birthdays. In fact, tonight's show will be a birthday gift to a friend of mine named Brae. Now, if you really want to have your own story, you can order one on our website at legendsofthewind.com in our store. And we're doing a special sale right now of 60% off. So you can get a story from us for $99. And so we'll just want to let you be aware of that opportunity and let you take advantage. You really want to know what story you're in. Everyone who I've written for, who have received their own story, all of them has said, this is the most amazing thing I've ever received. It really helps me see about my life and about myself. So that's something extremely important for you as an opportunity. And some of those stories that I've written have been found in this book, Legends of the Wind Volume 1. You can find this on Amazon. It has 20 stories that are for children and adults. There are all sorts of different fantasies and adventures and tales that really will get you insightful and help you to discover new things. And so if you've purchased our book, thank you very much for buying it. And if you have purchased and read it, we'd love for you to leave a review on Amazon for us. That way we know how you think about what we've done. So welcome to the show. Now, tonight's guest is a friend of mine. I've known him for about a year, and a certain friend, a motherly figure, Kathleen O'Donnell, introduced us to Jill and Brae, and Brae's with us tonight. So Brae, come on in. There he is. Hey Brae, how are you?
I'm doing good. Good to be here.
Cool.
I'm excited.
Yes, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to give you your story. As you know, what I was saying prior to going on air, I'm a little nervous and excited. I'm honored to be able to be a voice into your life and to tell you your story. This story is a download that I received. I did not have any pre-planning. I never interviewed you. I never researched you. So after we're done reading, I would love for you to respond and see if there's anything that sticks out to you in a good way. So you've also been super supportive of Alisha and I and our business and Legends of the Wind. I know that you may have seen some of our shows. I know that you've read my book. So I was wondering if you could just answer. Oh, thank you very much. That's an honor. So I have just a basic question for you. What have you gained or observed from watching Legends of the Wind?
I watched one episode, and I just love the creativity that God does with people. I love the creativity that's flowing through you, Jurri, to touch people's hearts, souls and minds with storytelling. And we know Jesus, and you're like off the old block, right? You're following the Father's footsteps. You're out there telling stories, these prophetic stories, and I just love seeing it. And now today I get to be it.
Nice.
And to receive it. So I'm excited, and I'm excited and nervous too, Jurri.
There you go. Cool. Just so you know that you broke up a little bit a moment ago, so hopefully the signal will regroup itself. But thank you very much for your endorsement and for your support. So this one's an interesting story. It's called Dust and Ashes. And I do know that you have written a novel that's more of a, I guess you could say, a horror story. that correct?
Yeah, it's a horror thriller novel. Yep, The Embalmer.
Yes. Now, I have not read it. I want to get it though. But I started getting a sense when your announcement of your birthday was coming up. I thought, man, I want to just give him a gift of a story. When I was doing these legends back in LA, I do them for birthdays too, and just, speak into their hearts and things like that. So let's just get into it. Hey, Mike Smith says, hi, Jurri. Thank you. It's good to see you tonight. So let's read your story. You ready?
Let's go for it. I'm ready. Let's do
awesome. Dust and ashes. It was a moonless night as Brae drove through the dirt back roads of the Arizona desert. His sedan's high beams reached out into the darkness, looking. Brae felt lost and without direction. His last turn off the freeway to his destination, that old motel below the Superstition Mountains, did not seem to work out. The summer was hot and the air was too dry. Now that darkness had fallen, the heat still hung in the atmosphere. The only relief that could come was a promised rainstorm. However, the well-known flash floods were often a sudden occurrence on these roads. Danger was in the air. The frustration inside of Brae was increasing. The car's GPS wasn't working. There was no cell signal. The hand-drawn instructions on a piece of paper he had were not clear enough to follow. The lost feeling he faced soon turned to fear. Off and on, the wind would blow dirt across the road and kick up spinning dust devils. Not only was Brae stressed, but he was trying to temper his emotions with the grief inside his heart. The drive was long, but Brae wasn't alone. Sitting next to him in a simple, quaint box were the ashes of his mother. Brae was on this road trip to find himself. The journey with his mother had been long and weary. He planned on driving up the desert plateau that looked out over the lower valley and say goodbye and make his amends. This location was special to him because on the family trips he went on as a child. The high desert land, the cactus, the animals, the mountains, and the thunderstorms all filled him with memories full of adventure and seeking the gold mines and treasures that the lore of the land spoke of. The Lost Dutchman's gold mine, even California's Sutter's Mill were fantasies he dreamed about. But now on this desert back road, all he had was dust and ashes. Brae kept driving forward, and he looked at the map and directions again. Things were becoming clear now. He passed 2 intersections that he recognized on the map. At last his bearings were straight. His destination was in sight, at least on paper. The car pulled up to the motel. The office light was not on, and on the door hung a note with a key. It was apparent the manager trusted that his absence would still allow Brae to check in. Brae saw that there were only 8 rooms and no one else lodged there. Brae felt uneasy and wondered why the manager was gone. He took the key, which was taped to the note, and opened his room. Inside, it smelled of burned popcorn and moldy drywall. It was the worst combination of scents he could imagine. Brae took the box of ashes and placed her on the dresser. He pulled out his rolling suitcase and laid it out. The bed's condition was the kind you could only imagine. Brae thought to himself, this place doesn't present the best memories he wanted to recall while growing up. Brae lay down on the bed to think about his plans. Tomorrow he will head up the windy road that leads up to the plateau. All he needed was a good night's sleep. He pulled the pillows closer and turned on his side. Although he shut the curtains, there was still a small gap that showed the flickering motel sign that shined its light in. This random on and off neon sign bothered him, so he turned on to his other side. Brae couldn't sleep. The clock on the wall ticked away, but that was just the beginning. Outside, Brae heard a car door slam and some keys jingle. This sudden sound made Brae sit up and look out the window through the space in the curtains. His view only showed his car, which was already locked, and he checked earlier. Brae was confused. Where was this noise coming from? He laid back on the bed and pondered. Brae took a cheap wooden lampstand, unplugged it, and removed the bulb and shade to create his own weapon. Brae opened his motel room door with caution and stepped outside. He held the lamp in one hand and the power cord in the other. Brae looked around and scanned the territory. The manager's office was the same as he left it before, but the motel sign light shined down and revealed a rotating bathroom sign that blew in the wind. Brae explored the display and turned around the corner and reached the back side of the motel building. Off in the distance was a bonfire, with dark hooded figures standing around the blaze. This discovery alarmed Brae, but it also raised his curiosity and heartbeat. Who are those guys, he thought. Brae's conscience was nagging him. He didn't want to end up on next year's Darwin Awards, but this was too much. He had to know. As he walked, the hair on the back of his neck stood up. His breath became short. The palms of his hands became cold and clammy. With each step, he walked without noise and drew closer. The fire's light was bright yellow, and the shadowy figures stood still. Brae snuck behind some old oil barrels and watched. A taller figure stepped forward and stretched out his arm, holding out a long white crystal. With some mumbling of words and a waving of his hands, the man spoke some sort of curse. Next, 2 men brought out a little boy, who was bound with his hands tied behind him. This boy was terrified, but he didn't make any move to escape. Brae saw this, and his eyes grew wide with terror. The 2 men held the boy tight, and the other, the leader, stepped in front of the boy. This leader pulled out a long knife and positioned himself to kill the boy. The men had the boy drop to his knees, and they pulled his head back. Brae couldn't handle this any longer. His instincts kicked in, and Brae ran into the thick of this demonic ceremony. Brae's heart cried out, and his voice screamed, "No!" Brae grabbed the boy just as the leader sliced the knife down and cut Brae's left ear. The sudden impact of Brae's force knocked down the 2 men, and the leader stumbled backward. Brae picked up the boy like a sack of potatoes and threw him over his shoulder and ran. The other shadowy figures gathered themselves and chased after Brae. As the evil figures ran, they shouted curses in some unknown tongue and shrieked out in the darkness. The adrenaline in Brae's bloodstream was on full tilt. Brae ran hard and looped around to return to the motel. Behind him, Brae looked and saw that the shadowy figures seemed to merge and meld into each other. The 6 men became 4. Then the 4 figures merged into 2 men. Then those combined into a final figure that disappeared into the darkness. Brae's sprint and his deep breathing brought him and the boy to the motel. He set down the boy as the motel's light shined down on them. Brae untied the rope and freed the boy's arms. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" The boy was in shock, and he hung his head low. Brae got down on his knees and lifted the boy's face to him. He asked, "What is your name? Where are you from? Where are your parents?" The boy looked up at Brae and said, "They call me Mutt." This name caused Brae to hold still in fear and amazement. Brae asked, "What? Did you say Mutt?" Brae's thoughts were racing because painful memories of being teased flooded his mind. When Brae was a young man, school bullies would taunt him with name-calling. Brae's heart broke over this little boy. "Let's find you a safe place." The boy called Mutt, and Brae walked to the front of the motel. Brae peered into the darkness and wondered where the evil shadowy figures went. Just as they neared the manager's office, it opened up its door, and a tall, creepy old man with a dusty leather fedora hat stepped out. It was dark. Brae and Mutt froze in their footsteps as they faced the manager. The creepy man spoke. "So, Brae, have you found yourself in this darkness? Your mother would be so proud." Brae turned fierce. "Are you with those freaks?" "We are many, Brae. We live here." As he pointed a bony finger at Brae's forehead, he continued, "You thought this wrong turn was a mistake, but you went to find yourself. But we have found you." The wicked man smiled with broken teeth that filled his mouth. "What you gonna do now, Brae?" "Step aside. We're going home." "You have no one to protect you." Brae thought hard. His mother's ashes were in his room, along with his car keys. He had a little boy that, with every passing minute, his presence kept reminding him of himself. What can he do? Brae spoke with authority in his voice. "Leave us, all of you, now! You forget I pulled out my sword from the stone. I am a king, and though I grieve over many things, you cannot harm us, dwellers of darkness. Stand aside. I am in the light. Brae held out his hand against the manager. With that last sentence, a bright light shined out from Brae's hand, and the beam pierced the manager, who screamed. The body of the manager rippled and tore apart in pieces of smoke. More screams roared out from the motel and into the parking lot. The walls of the motel shook and vibrated. Panels of wood crashed down. Brae ran with Mutt to his room. Brae grabbed his luggage and Mother's ashes and exited in a rush. As Brae loaded the stuff into his car and placed Mutt into the passenger seat, the entire motel, piece by piece, collapsed down on itself. The walls fell flat and they all folded onto themselves. Then the pieces of the building spun around in a vortex, and the earth opened and sucked the debris down into a hole toward hell. Brae hit the gas pedal hard, and his car tires spewed gravel as he spun around to leave the parking lot. Just as he left, the motel sign exploded in sparks, and its light went dark. Its pole tipped over and crashed to the ground. It sank into the desert sand as the earth seemed to swallow it. Brae sped his sedan away from the motel as fast as he could. He didn't know where he was going, but with intense eyes he looked out the windshield. After a moment of peace and silence, the boy spoke. "I'm sorry, Brae." Compassion filled Brae's heart. "It's okay, little one. I can forgive you. I will take care of you." The boy smiled. "You forgive me? I'm free?" Brae eased his posture as he gripped the steering wheel. "Of course." The boy turned to Brae and whispered, "That means you're free too." Brae kept his vision focused on the road and nodded with a smile. "I'm free too." Brae waited for the boy to speak more and turned to look. The boy was gone. Brae cried out, "Mutt! Mutt! Where are you?" Brae searched for Mutt and then shook his head in amazement. What happened? Brae drove through the desert all night long until the sun rose on the horizon. The car came to an intersection that could lead him in any direction, north, south, east, or west. Brae realized that the entire nation was his, and he could go anywhere he chose. His adventure was to find himself, but he didn't know how that was going to happen. Brae took care of his mother's ashes in private in an undisclosed location and fulfilled his needs and grief. He knew that his decision would make her proud. Brae was free. Inceptio.
Wow. That's amazing. That's an incredible storytelling. There's so much in this, Jurri.
Yeah?
Yeah, the symbolism, all of it was really speaking to me. That's a powerful gift that the Lord's blessed you with. Wow. I'm still saturating in
Yep,
some of this stuff.
that happens at the end of the story. Well, just freestyle. Speak whatever sticks out to you. I mean, whatever you feel comfortable sharing. Obviously, you're processing on the fly. I'm aware of that when I read someone's story, so it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things that stood out to me. Definitely, like my mother's ashes.
Yes.
I was feeling like that's honoring those that were before me. There's something about honoring your mother, right? And so I just felt like there was something that the Lord was saying about honoring those that have come before me. And then when you got to the boy and the key on the door, that spoke to me as far as that, like God gives us the keys needed to open doors that need to be opened, whether and that He's with me when I even go into those dark places. That even the enemy's keys are going to be turned to good in some format. So lots of things I'm processing through this. There was couldn't sleep. I feel restless a lot of times with my calling, right? I'm
Mm.
like, I know there's more, because God has revealed so much to me from where I've been. I was an atheist, became a Christian, failed English, wrote books, become award winning, now leading an organization for writers all around the world. And to be that, I'm constantly looking for what's next, because I know God is setting me up for the more. He always is. He's always setting. He's like, Jurri, he's setting you up for the more. He's setting everybody up for the more. But in order to get to the more, we got to break through where we're at the moment. We can't race ahead. We got to stay in step with the Spirit. Um, I mean, even driving in the desert,
Hmm.
those type of symbolic things through the storytelling, and the directions are incomplete. There's frustration, the danger. You feel the danger in the air. I feel a lot of that in the air, not for my flesh, but just the danger of the enemy. I know the enemy is here, amongst us, and leading people by the scores away from the Lord. And so I write to help navigate and storytell to bring people back to the Lord in some facet, whether it's a horror thriller or one of my children's books. It's the same. Um, the lamp outside, I thought that was very interesting, where I was holding the lamp outside to get light, and the scripture started popping in my head. The lamp, the word of the Lord is a lamp unto our feet, kind of thing. Um, the curses, the dark hooded figures, I just really saw that as the enemy. It's their gatherings to curse man and to destroy them. The playbook's the same: steal, kill, and destroy. And so I clearly was seeing the playbook of this, and seeing the boy come out, and interesting, the mutt.
Yeah, I wanted to know if you would recognize Mutt for any reason.
Yeah, excuse me. I feel the mutt was symbolic of, for me personally, because I never knew really my history of where I came from.
Hmm.
Um, my dad didn't really know who his real dad was. He never did, and he passed away. And so we don't have anything to track who his real dad was, because his mom slept around. Um, and so I never had any of that identity as far as ancestry. Like, I never had deep depth of grandparents, or uncles and aunts, and great grandparents. Never had that kind of thing. So I always felt like I was the mutt in school. Grew up a hippie, so I felt like I wasn't part of any group, um, and so you feel discarded in some way. So that I found that very interesting. The boy, and that touched me really, really good.
Wow.
And I was teased a lot growing up. So
Mm-hmm.
not only a mutt, but I was teased for my name, Brae. It was different, so people, of course, kids would always find something different. I'm sure they found Jurri very different,
Oh, never.
and you
I'm
you
I'm
might have
I'm
gotten
so
the
blasé
same.
with the common name of Jury.
Wow, you got out unscathed. So I grabbed the boy, I ran, and then really dealing with the wicked man finds me, which turns out to be the manager that had the key, right? And so just the boldness, saying step aside, the whole sword thing that you pulled out, um, stand aside, uh, and then the boy apologizing to me and saying I'm sorry, and then he goes into saying I'm free too, um, and then saying you're free. And I believe there was an angelic encounter there, because the boy disappears. We never know who we're entertaining. that Scripture came to light with that type of storytelling. And then the entire nation was opened up to me. I was like, yes, the entire nation. I took care of business with honoring the past, and now here's the future. And so I saw the scripture, and it's taking the old and the new out of the treasure. The treasure is the old and new, and combining those. So I see the honoring of the old and pursuing the new, and those being honored together. So it's
Yeah.
just really good about discovering myself, and
Yeah.
so I'm still on that journey, and I want everybody to be on that journey. Like Jill and I talk about this, we never want to feel like we've arrived. We always want to be in search of the more,
Mm-hmm.
but never striving or feeling lack, like we're missing something, because in Christ everything's complete. I have no lack because he's in me and I'm in him, and that's all we need in life. But he gives us these assignments. He gives us this race to run here in this time, in this place. So we're running, and we're excited for the future, and discovering deeper parts of ourselves. And we learn that through interaction with other people and other friends and other new people that we're meeting along the way as we travel. So um, well done. Well done. Holy
Thank you.
Spirit through Jerry
Thank you.
and and Jerry
Thank you.
listening and writing the story out. I thought, gosh, it's a great story.
Thank
Fantastic.
you.
Thank you. It
Thank
was
you,
a
Brae.
blessing.
Your feedback's pretty thorough, so thank you. And by the way, we have people watching right now. Some of them have chimed in on the chat. Mike Smith again says hi, and then Alicia's thumbs up. Marcia says incredible. So glad you're in the family of faith, Brae. If you guys watching want to ask any questions or make any further comment, we would really welcome your input into the show. Ask about the story, ask about Brae, or me a question or comment, doesn't matter. So, for me, I was so, as I told you, I told people around, I'm so nervous about this. I don't know if this is going to be spooky, because like I told my pastor, it's like, this is going to be dark. It's like Stephen King, and like he's like, really? Are you sure about this? It's like, well, yeah, I am sure, and so, and I talk about Brae's book about a horror film being a novel that's for Christian, or written by a Christian as a horror, and they're like, how does that work, right? And
Yeah.
and so Marcia says, yes, the entire nation is yours, Brae. You are marked by God for a nation. Well done. Jill says, well done. Thank you, guys. But it's like I'm kind of like blowing the box up, if that makes any sense, and
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and because like I get the download. I admit I'm nervous. I don't know how this is going to work, and yet
Yeah.
every single time I'm so thankful it happens. I've never bombed, and I'm so glad to really inspire and touch people. And so it's like what you were getting. You were interpreting your story, your legend, kind of like a dream interpretation, like the symbolic things. And I
Very
was
much.
Brae's past was pretty dark, says Jill. So maybe there's something there that I don't know about. But I also know you're doing like the dream interpretation. You're interpreting it symbolically, and I was wondering, about Mutt, about is there abuse in your past that you had to survive through? I was
Yeah.
concerned about the ceremony and the story about the sacrifice. It's like, that's really scary stuff. But the thing is, like, I know, like, even in Arizona and New Mexico, I don't even know where you grew up, but the places in the desert, they do a lot of nasty stuff, and child trafficking and human trafficking. And
Yeah.
so I see that, I think that for my interpretation of your story for you, I see that what you're doing for writing yourself, I see what you're doing with the other people in your organization, is that you and your people, your tribe, are setting people free from the darkest of bondages, and that you're
Yeah.
giving people a healing. And you had said that the little boy was an angel. I personally disagree. I think that little boy was a fragment of you. your soul,
Mm,
and that
okay.
the you forgave. He asked. He says, "I'm sorry, Brae." There's a part of your soul that's crying out for forgiveness. It may be a hidden place in your soul, and so
Yeah.
by reconciling to yourself sets you free and gives you the nation. And I don't think that's just participation of you, that you are the only one. I see that the people in your tribe is that when they come to the place where they can love themselves and come to the
Hmm.
place of identity and healing and open up that whole realm, their writing, their art, their craft will all reflect that in their own unique way. The
Yeah.
audience is going to be set free, and I believe that for you and your people. Does that make any sense to you? Do you follow me?
Yeah, totally. I can see that angle as well. As you sit back and you saturate and you kind of talk through the story and to hear your side of things too. Definitely can see that. There's as we go, we need to have that forgiveness of ourselves and forgiveness from and receive that from the Lord. A lot of times we receive the forgiveness from the Lord, but we really haven't forgiven ourselves
Mm-hmm.
truly yet. And there's depth to that. It's like peeling an onion,
Yes.
and the Lord walks us through it almost like our entire lives. We
Yeah.
we we find stuff that we're like, oh, I'm holding on to that. Like, what
Yep.
was that?
Yep.
So definitely, I can see that there's something there, and I put a question mark when I put angel.
Oh, okay.
So when the boy vanished, it wasn't something I was. It was just something that popped into my head because the boy vanished.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but that could be a reflection of me that
Mm-hmm.
you're saying,
Yes.
that I'm a reflection of this boy, and I can definitely see that in the story. That's
Wow.
going into deeper
Yeah. It's deeper.
layers, um, and so I won't share too much of the because as Jill, my wife, alluded to, that I've had a dark upbringing, but God is good. He's been restoring me day by day, just taking one piece at a time.
Yeah.
And so I will go to him and talk to him about this story because I think it's important,
Yeah. That's a
that
good
we
point.
we don't avoid these things. We go to the Lord and just talk to him about it. So
Yeah, that is a valid point. I mean, maybe in your time of prayer, he'll reveal some sort of new level of healing for you.
yeah,
I
yeah,
know that recently you had a significant illness and that you're now almost all the way on that. But
yeah,
I was wondering if it was an attack, not attack. It's just an attack on you personally, but also that this story was coming because it was supposed
yeah.
to be given on your birthday, and you literally got
On my
sick
birthday,
on
yeah,
your birthday, and I was
yeah,
like, oh man, I thought he's just getting blasted, and so because I
yeah,
already knew that this something was special was coming for you,
yeah,
and so I know that the enemy likes to attack just before something really special happens from heaven's point of
definitely,
view.
definitely.
So Jill says, I appreciate your vulnerability, Jurri. Jill, thank you. I do appreciate that comment. Thank you.
Yeah,
Mike says, sounds a bit like my past. Marcia says, that's right. Setting people free, Brae, and introducing to the fullness of Jesus. That's
yeah.
awesome. So, Brae, what would you say to people who are in your circle or your audience or the people that you have influence over? What would you say to them about getting their own story? Like how would you frame that for them?
Well, I would tell my 5 followers, get your story. I mean, this is amazing. This is so unique and so like I'll have this forever kind of thing. I think there's so many layers to the story that it's not a one-time thing. Like I can go back
Right.
and listen to this story and something new the Lord will reveal to me. And it's like when we get prophetic words, sometimes they're answered immediately, but sometimes there's something you're sitting on and you're walking this prophetic word out. So I'm going to be walking this prophetic story out, and it would never have been revealed to me, Jurri, if you didn't have the courage to say, I want to tell prophetic stories for your people, Lord. And he's giving you these stories to release, So I would have never had this story if you didn't say yes. Much like people won't encounter stuff that I'm doing if I hadn't said yes to the Lord. So when we say yes to what God's calling us to do, and it's sometimes crazy, and I'll tell you, Jurri, you're crazy for doing this. You're a lunatic. You're crazy, and I love it.
Thanks. I gotta have the green hair and the Joker face and the scars and just
No,
go.
it's a compliment. It's you were crazy for the Lord. You were being a fool for the Lord,
Yeah.
and so that's what I feel that genuineness behind what you're doing. This is guys, people that are following what I'm doing. Go for this. Go for it. Take the discount that Jurri's giving right now, and get your story. Now is the time. This is a now season, so I think we need to re-energize ourselves and get a new, refreshing story from the Lord. And so this is legit. This is legit.
Thank you.
I'm stoked.
Thank you very much, Brae, and thank you, Jill, for more comments from Jill. That's Brae's wife. I don't think anyone else is doing what you're doing. Marrying
Yep.
the prophetic and storytelling is powerful. Thank you. I mean, I don't know anyone else that's doing this. I mean,
I've
this
never seen it.
Genesis was interesting because like I learned this hearing and seeing from Kim Clement. I didn't
Yeah.
know him in a relational way, but I would always go to Kim's meetings anytime I could. And in October of 2004, I had a dream where I met him. And then I forgot what the conversation was. So then the following day I'm journaling, and I even write in this journal entry, like, here's what I was remembering. And I even say, I don't remember what Kim said. But as I'm writing it down, all of a sudden it starts flowing, and I have a conversation with him. And he starts
Yeah.
talking to me. And since that encounter, my ears and eyes and my gift have opened up big time. And then I then later went to Northridge. And what happened there is that God said, prophecy for you will change. It will no longer be a literal telling of a word, as like in a prayer ministry time, but a telling of a story where you will open up people's eyes and hand them their future so they can finish their parable. And I started
Wow.
getting downloads for the kids in the children's ministry. And then I started getting downloads for adults at Sean Bowles' church, Expression 58, where I met my wife, Alisha. And it just blew up at that time. And at the time, it was just a prosperous time. Everyone's like, I want a story. And I was telling Brae earlier, people don't know about this. And it's like, you're not going to go Google searching, how do I get a prophetic story? Because no one
Right.
knows that this is even possible. But it
Yeah.
is, and that's why I opened up my show tonight with imagine that there's a library in the realm of the imagination in a magical kingdom. And those
Yeah.
have books, stories written about you.
Yeah.
And so it's just a fun thing. It's a scary thing for me. And I know that when
Totally.
people are nervous about getting their own story because they don't know what to expect. But dude, every time it works, and I'm just so
Yeah.
thankful for that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how I got started.
That's amazing, Jerry. It's amazing. I mean, we step out in faith. You're stepping out in this faith, and it's not with your eyes closed. It's your eyes open. You're focused on the Lord, and you're hearing from Him, and you're like, okay, this is the story, and then you have to release it. And yeah, it's nerve wracking and exciting at the same time because you're like,
Yeah.
Lord, what are you going to do through this? And
Yeah.
one of the other things that stood out, Jerry,
Yeah.
was the story was the part where the dark figures and that I would go in and rescue this boy. And a lot of times when I'm writing my stories, I feel that's what I want to do. I want to go into those dark places and bring people out and rescue them. And that's why I wrote The Embalmer. It's to leave the 99. I'm leaving the Christians behind. They're fine. I'm going after the one. And so the embalmer is not for Christians. It's for those that are lost in a dark place and they won't read the Bible, they won't read a devotional, they won't read any of that. But they will read a book that's got swearing and violence, but it's got that gospel message tucked in there powerfully for
Right.
them to hear. And that's what I really picked up on that too with the story that you
Thank
released
you.
over me. And it
Yeah.
was confirmation from the Lord that, like, keep going, Brae, keep going.
Yeah.
So
That's good.
powerful.
Thank you. That's really good, Brae. Marcia says this is an incredible way to draw in those who don't know their story with Jesus yet. It's exciting, Jurri, because you can reach a whole population of people for the Lord. Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, yeah. If you guys watch me enough, I don't speak religious language, but I definitely tell stories that hide heavenly treasures, if that makes any
Oh
sense.
yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
that's how
it.
I operate. So I don't want to sound churchy or religious. And if other people speak that way, well, that's okay.
Yeah.
But I love helping people. But I also learned that it's important to hide treasures in the shadows of your stories. And
Yeah.
that if you try to give it directly, it's not going to work. And so that's why art is so important and so valuable. So that's what I've learned. Does anyone else have any questions or comments at all? Any questions? A lot of people are commenting. Does anybody have a thought? Please ask if you have one. So thank you, Brae. So let's remind the audience, or for the first time. So Brae, what is your organization? Tell us about a little bit more specific detail about what you're doing. I know that you and Jill have been traveling throughout the United States, and kind of give a snapshot of what your organization is.
Yeah, so we're the directors of Kingdom Writers Association. So we're igniting the God's scribal army all around the world. In 2016, he said, "Gather my scribes and give me room to speak to them." I heard the audible voice of God, and that's what we've been doing since 2016 January. We've been gathering, and we're creating chapters all around the United States, or these communities of writers and also creatives. We started our nonprofit, Kingdom Creativity International. So we're pastors for the creatives, and we travel around the U.S. and speaking, and we write books. My wife's an amazing finger painter, artist, and author. She does it all, and she keeps me in line. So that's her
Good.
biggest job, is keep me in line.
Yep.
The Lord sent her to me to do that.
Jill, if you
So
have any comments about what he's doing wrong, just let us know now.
she'll tell me first before she tells anyone else.
Right. Cool. Well,
So yeah, we just love helping people understand who they are as a kingdom writer, and a storyteller, and a creative, whatever that is that God's called them to be.
that is fantastic. I'm proud of you for what you're doing. It's hard work and laborious. It takes a long time, a lot of miles.
Yeah.
We just have a question from Kylie. How did shadow people get into his mind in the story? Oh, that's a good question. Brae, why don't you think about? Can you answer that question, or should I?
That would be from the author.
Oh, okay. Wait. Okay. So I think that those shadow people, the bad guys, could be physical and translate themselves into non-physical, and that they can combine into another one invisible entity. And then I think the manager showing up is the whole like all of them combined into one physical being. And then remember, he points the bony finger to his forehead and says, "We found you." So these entities are the enemy, and they are affecting Brae's mind and how he thinks and feels and imagines. And they could be areas of need of deliverance or bondage or setting free. And I think that those entities, remember, they're going to harm the little boy, which in my opinion is Brae's smaller self and his younger soul. And so I think that Brae rescuing his younger soul is a direct affront from the enemy trying to destroy him. So that's how I interpret it.
Yeah.
Jill asks, "What do you think about the enemy slicing Brae ear?" I think that Brae, your character as a person, not just in the story, I think that you have a sacrificial heart, that you'd be willing to take a bullet for people, whether it be literally or figuratively. I think that you
Yeah.
care about people so much that you would be willing to go after the one, like you said, and risk it all, so that even if you were to be damaged in some way in the process, that is a price you're willing to pay. That's how I see you in your character. Not just the character in the story, but like who you are as a person. You have a sense of nobility to you. You have a sense of duty and honor, not a duty of performance like a religious duty, but they're like, oh yeah, you do the night thing. You had your book signing thing, right, the other day, and you had your
Yeah.
little mail,
Dressed up at
and
night. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. There's a strong dynamic of honor in what you do and who you are. And I think that what
Yeah.
you do with whomever you interact with, you have honor to those
Mm.
people, and that you're willing to be potentially damaged or wounded from helping people. And I don't say you're a masochist. I'm just saying that's a sacrifice you're willing to do, because you care more
Yeah.
about who you're rescuing than your own self.
Yeah, I agree with that. Another angle that I was when Jill brought that up, I was
Yeah.
thinking as a dream interpretation, I would look at it going trying the enemy trying to sever the hearing
Oh,
from
yeah.
directly, um, and but also these are the bat when you're in the battle and we're not afraid to go into the battle. We got our armor of God that God's given us. We suit up, and when you go into battle, you don't get dressed up for nothing, like Braveheart says, right? We didn't get dressed up for nothing. So there's a battle coming and there's battle happening. So there is going to be damage inflicted on both sides. And yes, it is worth it. When the Lord's going to heal that ear, right?
Mm,
The Peter cut off the man's ear, and the
right.
Lord healed that. So my flesh is there for the Lord to do His bidding, and because I love Him, not because I want to have performance or to receive more love from Him. I can never receive any more love or any less love from Him.
Mm-hmm.
He loves me, and that's enough. So it's that love inside of me and inside of you that drives us to do these crazy things and to go into places that we're called to go into. Some places people are called to go into those darker places, and some people are
Yeah.
there to be supportive of those going into the darker places, whether it
Yeah.
be finances or prayer, or lifting the arms up for that, the hers for Moses and the Aaron's and hers. So we need that on all fronts and all avenues. This is a war out there, guys, and those are real bullets being fired at us. We have to get off the movie set mentality of Christianity and say, no, this is real war. People lives are on the line, and it's the real deal. So when you get stuff like this, do not discount this as a simple, lovely little story. No, I need to dig into this. I heard from the Lord while Jurri was reading my story, and I understand what the Lord is talking to me about, and I'm going to understand even more as I go to Him deeper with this storytelling. So go get your darn story with Jurri.
Thanks, Brae. Thank you. Oh, that's funny. Kylie has a question. Maybe you would be willing to answer this one. Kylie
Oh, okay.
asks, why is the enemy attractive?
Why is the enemy attractive? Was there a part in the story where you were saying they were attractive? Were they beautiful and awesome, or is
No, it
she just
wasn't.
asking it to me?
I think maybe because Brae was going away from the motel to the bonfire, maybe.
Yeah, it's I would say it's curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
It's also where you're being led. So there was a light source, there was noise, I was restless. I couldn't sleep in according to the story. So I was in search of something, and I heard noises. So what are those noises? What's causing that? What is this happening? And so when you get led by the Lord, He might lead you into these dark places, but He's with you, and He's for you, and He's led you to those places on purpose. Now we go into those with wisdom, and there's
Right.
wisdom there to watch what was happening before I just jumped in. I didn't just walk up to these guys and say, "Oh, are we cooking marshmallows?" Or what I mean? It's like, no, I waited and I watched. And then when they brought out the boy and there was a sacrifice, then that's when I'm like, nope, I'm called to step in and say, no, that's not going to happen on my
Right.
watch
Right. Thank you.
here. So the enemy can attract us in different ways, right? It's sometimes he lures us in with lies, making things look better than they really are. So we need discernment from the Lord to decipher those things, those lies. The lamp under my feet is the word to see clearly where you're walking. And the enemy will use power, money, lust, greed, all of those things to entice us and lead us astray, lead us off the path, because in reality, God owns everything. He is the richest. So we are with Him, and He's with us. When I have bills, I go, "These are your bills, Lord. What do you want to do with them?" When there's money involved, or our car was wrecked and damaged, and we had to get a new car.
Yeah.
Lord, this is your problem. How are you going to replace this? Instead of taking the burden on me, I'm placing it back on Him, and He wants that. He's a loving Father that wants to take those burdens from us. So, great question to dive into.
Cool. Thank you, Kylie, and thank you, Brae, for your answer. So we'll wrap it up here. It's about 54 minutes or 53 minutes in. So just in case you don't know, if you want a story from me,
And
and
Jurri the book, get his
okay,
book on
go to
Amazon. It's a
Amazon
great
for the book. We also have an audiobook of this thing, and it's really cool because it's got music and sound design. It's not a boring monotone telling of the stories. It's a full immersement in your imagination of the audiobook. And so you can get the audiobook and the physical book at Amazon. And if you want to get your own story, go to legendsofthewind.com and go to the store and take advantage of our 60% off sale for you to receive your own story. There are a few stipulations. If you want to have your own story, you will need to be willing to be on my show and go through what happened tonight, which is you get your story for the first time in front of everybody, and then we get to talk about it. And then there's some legal things that we need to sign. This general a release and a contract for no money, basically giving me the permission to publish the book and the story. And there's nothing weird about it, but that has to happen. And so, but don't let that distract you from the joy of receiving your own legend. I mean, if you think about it, these stories and legends are so inspirational, and they impact your life forever. And just like what Brae said, what Brae said about rereading these stories over and over, I've heard from many people who I've written for that they still, years later, ponder the story. It still speaks to their hearts, and you can have that opportunity as well. So for only $99 instead of $250, we're doing this sale. You can have your own legend. So sign up at our store, legendsofthewind.com. And just so you know, a reminder that our show's weekly at 7 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Mountain. And we may need to find time to do a second show in the week because there's a lot of people wanting to not wait too long for their own story. We do have a bunch that have signed up for free stuff. And then I'm also doing the promotion with Yes FM in Toledo, Ohio. So we're working on that. And then if you want to email me, you can reach me at support@legendsofthewind.com. So thank you guys for watching this show. Brae, thank you for being my guest and for giving me the opportunity to give you your legend. Please hit the subscribe button and like this page and like this show. And we'll see you on the next broadcast next Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific. Thanks so much for joining us, and I'll see you soon. Have a good week.